Hey team, welcome to the Everyone Active podcast. I am your host, Joe. Team, thank you so much for listening. On this episode, I am very excited to announce that we are working now with a company called Nutrable. And I am welcoming Mike. I believe you are one of the lead, if not chief nutritionists
That is
for
my title.
Nutrable. So thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, great to be here. Excited about this new partnership.
Yeah, absolutely a new partnership. So we should say, as part of our U Plus membership, you are now a partner of Nutrable. So we are announcing
Indeed,
this
you
to
are.
our members, and yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And we're just going to talk a bit about Nutrable, some top tips nutrition wise we can give our members, and we will go from there. So, Mike, can you tell me a little bit about you, your history, qualifications, and then also what is Nutrable?
Sure, great. I mean, let me just say, firstly, I love you guys, and I love this U plus philosophy that
Hmm.
you've got with the six pillars. And it's quite relevant for me in kind of my journey. I mean, I spent the better part of 25 years in the IT industry
Hmm.
trying to undo my health. I
Yeah.
was in a constant state of circumnavigation and jet lag and stress, and my sleep was atrocious. My diet was even worse. My favorite meal was the Hilton Club sandwich with French fries.
Okay.
You might know that meal, but it was kind of very much a work hard, play hard kind of
Yeah.
approach to life, on top of kids and family and everything else. But I kind of had this attitude, and I think some of my colleagues did as well, that we could kind of simply reverse any damage done by just going to the gym.
Yeah.
And is that kind of a common attitude
Oh,
that people
absolutely.
have?
And there's also a classic, I suppose it's also due to everything that's potentially out there now on social media or when you're around work hard, play hard, work hard, play hard. But the biggest message is if you are working hard, you need to recover hard
Yeah.
or else you can't keep going. And if you can't keep going, your body is going to be telling you those signs. It's going to be giving you a muscle pull. It's going to be giving you a headache. It's going to be making you feel tired after you think that you've slept for 8 hours. So yeah, and you're absolutely right. With that U plus philosophy that we've got on, we are allowing people the space to think about wellness as a whole, not just movement that they might do with this in our centres. Like, how can we make you more well when you're not in contact with us? And if you are working hard, playing hard, you need to be recovering hard. You need to be fueling
Yes.
hard.
You know, and I didn't have a health crisis.
Hmm.
A lot of people in this wellness world got there from their own kind of
Yeah.
crisis, but I could sure see it coming, and the signs were everywhere, and colleagues were kind of dropping like flies. And nobody kind of grows up wanting to be an IT sales guy. They just kind of end up there. So I knew I kind of needed a new plan,
Okay.
and I got lucky. I was freshly divorced at the time, took my daughters on holiday to visit my oldest, dearest friend,
Yeah.
and forgot the fiction book I was reading.
Hmm.
So I had nothing to read.
Right.
And my buddy says, when I got there, oh, well, this will keep you busy. And he hands me a book called The Optimum Nutrition Bible from a guy named Patrick Holford.
Yep.
And it was nutrition for bone health, brain health, immune health, heart health, skin health, musculoskeletal health. And I was just, oh my God, this is it. I know what I want to be when I grow up. And I was 45 at the time.
Yep.
So I went back to school, um, got my qualification. It's a 4-year deep dive in nutritional therapy,
Okay.
and haven't looked back. I've been that was in 2010. I started that journey, and here I
That's
am,
amazing. I just
nutritional
want to
therapist.
take a huge point out of that. How many years did it take you to get those qualifications?
4.
Yeah, exactly. So you are fully qualified, highly certified nutritionist. I think one of the big barriers towards people's understanding of nutrition are the messages that are out there, or people that claim that they can give nutritional advice and nutrition plans when actually it just maybe worked for them, or they think they followed something that they've watched online. Nutrition is a science.
Mm.
Our bodies are amazing, scientific, energy producing machines. And food and fuel and hydration and liquid is something that we do need to be conscious of and we do need to be aware of. But I just want to do that tip out to anybody talking about nutrition is you need to speak to a registered qualified nutritionist.
if you want to cut through the noise, because there is
Yeah.
a lot of noise out there, and if ever I'm speaking to a group of people and I ask the question, who of you feel that nutrition is a confusing subject? 8 out of 10 will put their hand up,
Yes.
because most people, sad to say, get their nutrition education from the media,
Hmm.
you know, from looking at a headline, one day broccoli cures cancer, the next day, too much broccoli is bad for you. And
Yes.
and so, of course it's confusing, because the media are, no disrespect, but they're interested in selling papers with catchy headlines rather than properly interpreting the nutrition science, And a lot of the time, the studies that they reference, if you read them, you know, you can pick them apart.
Hmm.
They're based on a rat, or a 5-day thing, and so yeah, it's but at the same time, it is incredibly simple
Hmm.
once it's just about getting closer to nature. The further you get away from nature, the further health tends to get away from us,
Yeah.
when it comes to our food,
That's a that's a really nice summary of it.
Mm,
Oh, we might be using that one later. We
it's
might
kind of
discuss that a bit
simple.
further. So can you now connect the dots for us? So how did becoming the qualified nutritionist then lead to you being head of Nutrable?
Well, I mean, Nutrible's been going now for, I think, a little over 5 years,
Okay.
and we started as a different entity. Really,
Mhm.
we were developing a nutritional supplement search and compare site, so kind of like a Go Compare with
Yeah.
a Google wrapped up in to help people make more informed supplement decisions, right? But then we pivoted to corporate health and employee wellness, right? Educating companies, workforces.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of crazy. The World Health Organization estimate that 2/3 of all disease worldwide
Hmm.
is directly linked to diet and lifestyle. And the biggest lifestyle decision people make several times a day is what to eat,
Yeah.
right? And companies out there will offer gym membership, big fan of that, health insurance, which is really kind of sick care backstop. But as far as nutrition support, it's a fruit bowl in the canteen
Hmm.
at best, right? And so we set out to make nutrition support kind of a standard employee benefit.
Nice.
And I think, we'll get there. I think companies they can't ignore nutrition.
Yeah.
It's 2/3 of all disease, Um, but that was kind of let's say, the larva kind of caterpillar
Okay.
stage of the company. And now we've kind of butterflied into the nutrition coaching company and platform that we are today. Yeah.
That's amazing. So with our U Plus membership team, you will be able to log into the U Plus section of your app and you will see Nutrable. So can you just let us know what they get with Nutrable? What does that product look like? What advantage are we bringing into our members?
Well, so Nutrable is let's just say, a scalable kind of human powered nutrition coaching platform and
Nice.
company. And the platform combines real coaches with digital tools that offer members the daily kind of judgment free support that they need to kind of hit their health goals, right? And they learn about how the consistent food choices they make directly impact their goals, whether it's energy production or immune health or hormone balance or mental health, or maybe they just want to lose a little weight, right? And so the U Plus members, they get access to this learning platform, if you will.
Nice.
And so when they log on, they complete their health profile, they fill out their health goals, their health interests. That helps us curate the content that's most relevant for them, so they get their daily feed of inspiration. They can follow any one of our various team coaches that have specializations, whether it's the menopause coach, weight loss coach, sleeping, what have you, and several times a week, these coaches put out their little tips and their personal posts, and very kind of social media like,
Yeah.
um, and and then they have access to live events every single week. We have live events on various topics,
And
but
so when we're talking about those live events,
yeah.
they're like maybe via an online platform, and we can log in and we are listening, but we can live feed questions through to the nutritionist that's discussing these topics.
Absolutely. Yes. So you see them on the platform, you can register, you do have to register for the event you want. And then you dial in, and they're always live or hosted, and there's a qualified nutritionist there to answer any questions. And then the members can also sign up to these self-paced programs. Okay, and these are kind of gamified, kind of, if you heard of Duolingo,
Yes,
kind
yep.
of that kind of challenge type thing where you're giving cards, challenges, quizzes, recipes to try, shopping tips, things like that. And, they take you on kind of a learning journey. We've got a number of different programs that U Plus members can sign up to. And each program will have a dozen or two modules that they complete. Each module might have 15, 20 kind of challenge cards, and you earn these badges of achievement, and you kind of just expand your knowledge. So some of the new plus programs that are available. We have for example, we have a U plus nutrition for weight loss program.
Yep.
And the title of some of the modules, just so you get a feel for it, understanding calories, right? The key to fat burning, taming cravings, mindful eating, gut health, sleep nutrition, fueling your muscles,
Yep.
shopping smart, kitchen overhaul, the inflammation fix, hydration, things like that, right? So it's fun, and you finish these programs with a heck of a lot more knowledge
Yeah.
than you started with.
And the beauty of it is, you mentioned it earlier, is when we're logging on, it's included within your U Plus membership. So it's no extra cost at this point at all, but you can personalize. And I think that's the biggest key to this is we'll talk in a little bit about the noise out there and any myths and our top tips. But the fact that you can personalize to you as an individual what your goal is.
Mm,
And then we know, because we work in the field, that actually your nutrition that you might want to look at after you've had a 2-year-old start back at nursery, go to school, you've gone through post giving birth, your body is slightly different. Your nutritional needs are going to be different from somebody on a triathlon journey who is top of their game and actually wants to find that 1 more %. And is that something through nutrition that they could gain? So the fact that you can highlight what your goal is and you'll select something that you're interested in, the information is tailored to that
yeah,
individual, which
yeah.
I just think is phenomenal.
And you can change your priorities at any time. You can bail out of a program and change programs if you want. And like, for example, there's a U plus fitness nutrition program that includes some of those same modules, but others like balancing energy, which is very much about blood sugar management and avoiding underfueling, and eating around workouts, and fueling your muscles, part 1, 2, and 3,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
And you also, we say like there's lots of information out there, and I want to talk about getting back to nature. But the fact that it's bite-sized chunks, you're not literally going, you are walking in to a degree level nutrition lecture, bang, this is all of these words that people aren't going to understand. It's real talk, it's
Yeah,
simple talk, but it's not patronizing. It's just, okay, I get
yeah.
that now. What is the science behind that? How do you make that connection between, like, the science, you know what the body needs, you know the energy that it needs. How do you get that bridge to actually getting people to understand? Because there is so much noise out there.
Yeah. Well, we've learned along the way,
Hmm.
that it has to be snackable. You know, just you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. You need one step after another. You can't go from, I mean, there's a huge gap of nutrition knowledge out there.
Yeah.
Um, and you can't go from that, like, so are vegetables good for me, to having a degree in nutrition. And so but baby steps, little snackable nuggets, little insights, spoon fed along the way, not in a patronizing way,
Yeah.
but in a structured, kind of staged, progressive way, is the key to success. And and we challenge individuals. They have to do things and try. They have to take photos of their meal and upload them, um, and uh, and then they can feed back their results,
Yeah.
and it's working,
And it's the
you
fact
know.
that you're kind of also semi-accountable because it's trackable. You can see what we've read, what we've done. It's not like we're not drilling and following you, but from our point of view, from a learner point of view, if I was a member logging on, I can see what progress I've made. I
Yeah.
know what I'm going to next. It keeps me accountable.
Yes. And we have um, the kind of my plan section, which your members get access to, and so that they can see their achievements, they can see the badges they've earned, they can see the modules they've completed, they can track things like their weight, and we're adding to the platform more and more. We were just talking this morning about eventually integrating input from wearables,
Yeah.
heart rate variability, things like that, waist to hip ratio, these essential kind of markers of metabolic health
Yeah.
and overall
And that
health.
is one of the greatest things about the industry that we both work in is the science and the data that's now being conducted and researched is now coming out even more. Like there's a proper passion. And I've really found this from working in the industry in just even the last 10 years is the amount of science that's coming out about gut health and
Mm,
our gut bacteria. Can you just maybe go into that a little bit for us? Like, what is gut health? People are hearing, oh, I've got to drink this and I've got to potentially eat all of this. What's gut health?
gosh, I mean, isn't it interesting that the father of Western medicine was a chap named Hippocrates, right? Ancient Greek physician. And he lived 2,500 years ago. And he said a number of amazing things. Um, but like for example, he observed through clinical, observation that which is used develops, that which is not withers, right? One of his many little lines,
Nice.
let food be thy medicine, right? Um, and he also famously said, all disease begins in the gut,
Hmm.
all right? And this was before we knew what a vitamin was, you know? And he just observed through his clinical observation with his patients that people came to him with ailments outside of the gut. And when he improved the health of their gut and their digestive system, often those other ailments disappeared, if not greatly improved. And so the more we learn now about the human immune system and the digestive system, the more we know that Hippocrates was pretty spot on. Um, and a huge aspect of gut health is this thing called the microbiome,
Okay.
right? Which is the collective name for the bacteria and organisms that reside in our gut. It's estimated there are 100 trillion of them that live in our gut. There's only like 10 trillion cells in the human body.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you could say we're 90% bacteria, 10% us. Okay. And we're now realizing that there's not much about our health that these critters play a role in, right? Um, and they, they, they feed on what we don't digest.
Hmm.
Okay. So whatever we digest and absorb gets into our bloodstream through the gut, and everything else goes to the colon and are fed on by these gut microbes. Okay. And then they work on digesting the rest, the plant fibers and anything else that isn't digested. And then they produce what are called metabolites that are chemical compounds that can either be toxic or can inform and educate our immune system. And we're learning that the more diverse our microbiome means that the more kind of diversity of organisms and species and strains, the more tolerant our immune system is, which is kind of what you want from your immune system, right? If your immune system is overactive, life is hard.
Yeah.
You're reacting to everything, you know?
Absolutely. And especially if we think about this time of year, like it's the colder, it's the longer, darker days. It is that time of year when there's potentially going to be more bacteria in the environment around us, more colds, more flus. But let's go back to that amazing gut bacteria.
Yeah. I mean, when your gut I mean, some of us may have experienced when, for whatever reason, they get a dodgy gut.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a case of Delhi belly or Montezuma's revenge, or just they picked something up in the gut. Often what happens after that is you come down with a cold or something. So it is directly linked to our immune strength,
Yes.
right? And what we want is immune flexibility. There's a lot of talk about, oh, boosting immunity. We actually don't want to boost our immunity. We want our immune system to be resilient and
Yes.
adaptable and
Yes.
flexible. An over ambitious immune system can be problematic, right? And the gut microbes are critical to that, right? But they're also involved in hormone balance, right? There are certain strains of bacteria that help metabolize spent hormones, right? We know that uh, when women go through the menopause and their estrogen drops, that changes the milieu and the ecology, so to speak, of that ecosystem in the gut, and that can have impacts
Mhm.
on hormone balance and on immune health and on weight gain and other things. So, I mean, I lecture in gastrointestinal health at the College of Naturopathic Medicine, and it's an all day lecture, and it could
Yeah.
be an all weekend lecture. So it's a diverse topic. I just scratched the surface with the microbiome, but there are enzymes and stomach acid and then resolving disease
Mhm.
conditions and symptoms like bloating and other things that we could talk about.
So you spoke about like the boosting, I suppose, of that gut bacteria. How?
Good question. Turns out it's all about plants,
Okay.
right? Plants provide, plants contain, we think, when we think fiber, right? Most people think bran flakes, okay?
Yes. I bet they do.
It's like sandpaper, there's a role for bran flakes, right? But when we talk fiber and gut health, we're talking about the plant fibers that we cannot digest, right? Imagine a stick of celery, right? There are fibers in there that we do not make the enzymes to digest, okay? All plants have structures in them that are undigestible to by humans,
Mm.
but fortunately our gut bugs can take care of that. And so this is what they feed on, all that fiber. And so that feeds our gut microbiome. So, one of the reasons that fiber intake keeps us regular is, if not the main reason, is that it feeds our microbiota so that they promote motility and bowel movements, right? But we also know that the colors, the pigments in our food, okay, we've heard about the colors of the rainbow,
Yeah.
you know, these rich phytochemicals and polyphenols, right? Um, these colors, the purple in beetroot and aubergine, the red in bell peppers and the skin of apples, the green in broccoli and kale and spinach, the yellow in bananas or squash, the orange in carrots, and you get the picture. All these different colors are different plant compounds that certain microbes and species can metabolize. And so the more of these colors that we digest, the more diversity of our microbiota we develop. Okay. And so it's like fertilizer for our microbiome.
Huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now, why is that important and how is it linked to the immune system? When you think about it, the immune system is responsible for protecting us from non self, right? It has to distinguish what's us and what's not us and make decisions. And there are more immune decisions in the gut in a single day than the rest of your body immune system in a lifetime, right? And when you think about mm, our immune system, 70% of it sits in the gut, and it has to get used to these 100 trillion non self organisms, okay, and decide that they're friend, not foe. In some cases, they are foe and they need to be dealt with. But it's kind of logical that the more diversity, the more plant diversity we get, the more diversity of microbes we fertilize and grow, and they grow happier families and cousins and nephews. And the more they learn to tolerate, the more our immune system learns to tolerate those critters. And so the more tolerant our immune system becomes, and it's not so overreactive and, bloating and other symptoms that might come from
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely. And it's there and then it's strong and it's ready for getting rid of something that we do not want. The thing that I would say today, like if we're comparing right now, right here, is that actually the lifestyle that some of us created makes it really difficult to get that diversity through because we're not consciously eating. We are potentially eating something on the go in the car, or we're grabbing something that we can eat at the desk. I just think back to my granddad's generation, and by default, he would be growing his own or walking to a market, but the only produce available was seasonal.
Mm.
So I think back, well, this is like two generations, and by default, he ate something very different January to March than he did in August, September, because there just wasn't it wasn't available. You couldn't get
Yeah.
strawberries any time of the year bar in the summer. So he's not going to be doing it. But now we've kind of created our own little creatures of habit. And in terms of nutrition, we've kind of gone backwards because we're like, oh no, I just like strawberries. Strawberries count as one of my fruits. I'm going to eat them throughout the year. But I think you've just really emphasized a point that we need to get different sources of plants in us throughout to help us grow.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's hard nowadays, to live seasonally
Yeah.
unless you're living out on a farm somewhere in Pennsylvania as an Amish person, whatever. But no question, that's how we developed and evolved. We ate seasonally.
Hmm.
And if you can manage it, great. There is something about a seasonal strawberry compared to, a winter strawberry. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just devoid of flavor. But now we can produce these incredible tomatoes year round,
All year round.
and so um, I think it's hard to kind of preach that seasonal
Mm.
approach.
Have
But
you got top tips for somebody wanting to get a bit more diversity into their nutrition? What would be not an easy win, but something achievable, something that you could maybe be tangible and do tomorrow if they're listening to this now and be like, oh, okay, I could do that.
well, there's this as nutritionists, we've been talking about it for decades. It's this 30 a week challenge thing that now has been popularized by um, you know nifty programs like Zoe and things like that, right? This 30 a week challenge, and what that is all geared towards is increasing the plant diversity in your diet, right? Nothing wrong with meat and fish and eggs and chicken and dairy and all of that good protein sources, but we need a plant forward diet to support our gut health. And so a quick little thing to focus on is, the colors of the rainbow. In a given day, how many colors have ended up on your plate? And I'm not talking about Skittles, right?
Yes.
But, if you had blueberries for breakfast and you had some green leaves and some carrots in your lunchtime salad, then, maybe you could get some red peppers in at dinner time, or some radishes, or just trying to get as many colors from the rainbow each day, or at least ticking all of them off every couple of days is a good little challenge, and people can kind of keep track of the colors that they've eaten. You can get these charts, and Nutrable have these charts as well, where they're kind of like shopping inspiration, and just every time you're at the supermarket, and the outer perimeter of the supermarket tends to be the safer place, right? That's kind of where the more live food is. um, and it's like putting something in your cart that you haven't eaten in a while.
Hmm.
Like when was the last time you had a fennel, right? A lot of people don't know what to do with this stuff, but you can just grate it and make a coleslaw out of it, for example, or roast it under some chicken wings, um, mushrooms. People think 30 a week. Oh my God, that's way too challenging, but it adds up pretty quick, because you might have a salad with three different types of leaves, tick, tick, tick. Maybe there was some pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds, tick, tick. Maybe there was a chestnut mushroom, tick. It's not necessarily whole servings of these plants, but just including them on your plate in whatever capacity,
That's great.
it all counts. And then you're going to gradually start to feed these species of microbes, and they're going to then help look after your gut. And as Hippocrates said, health begins in the gut. So.
Health begins in the gut. Definitely. We spoke about it, or I mentioned it, like food on the go. There's been a massive rise in ultra processed food, and
Mm.
people are hearing about ultra processed food or UPF or can't be made in the kitchen. But what is ultra processed food? Is it good for our gut health? Does it count as nutrition?
That's a good question, and I've proposed this to members and students in conversation because it used to be called junk food, right?
Yeah.
And now we got a new term for it, ultra processed food, and it's basically it refers to food that's come out of a factory that usually had some sort of food scientists involved in engineering it. It includes ingredients that you cannot buy yourself. You wouldn't ever find them in your kitchen. They're gums and fillers and texture enhancers and additives and E numbers and other things engineered for palatability and craving and moreness. And whenever you process a food, uh, there's a step down in nutrient levels, right? And there are actually stages of processing. Um, for example, an apple, a whole food, no processing. A sliced apple, stage two, right?
Hmm.
Um, Applesauce, stage three. An apple pie from a famous fast food chain, stage four, ultra processed, right? And so there are degrees of processing, right? Uh, and it's not like you can't find good food that's come out of a factory,
Hmm.
right? But when you look at the ingredients, and some people say anything more than 5 ingredients on a label, put it back on the shelf. That can be a bit extreme, I mean, we cook sauces at home that have more ingredients than that. You're just looking for things that don't read as food, you know?
Yeah.
Food's pretty easy to recognize, you know? A whole food, um, someone once asked me, but what's a whole food? When I recommended that they aim for 80% of their diet from whole foods. And my answer is, whole food is anything with one ingredient. There's only one ingredient in broccoli. A chicken leg is a chicken leg. A peach is a peach. But like, what on earth is a quaver? You know,
Yeah.
um, there's 20 ingredients in quaver, and the only thing you recognize is like salt. You know, that is an ultra processed food, and sadly, um, people today think that is food. Right?
Hmm.
Um, the definition of food is a substance that nourishes the body for growth and repair. Right? And so, with that definition, is a quaver food. You know, you think maybe it doesn't qualify. But at the same time, if you were starving, walking through the desert, and you had water, but you had no food, and you were about to die of starvation, and you found a mountain of quavers,
Yeah.
it might keep you alive. So, there's a degree to the definition. But yeah.
And so when we're talking to our members, or if anybody's listening to this podcast, when they're out doing their shops, I think you said something really handy earlier about all the outside aisles.
Yeah.
They're a connection with nature. Our bodies are connected to nature. But in terms of ultra processed food, what do they need to look out for? What do we not necessarily want to be putting through us?
Well, I mean, again, look at the label and see how many ingredients are on it.
Hmm.
That's a good first sign. And then just see, is there anything on that ingredient list that is not food? You'll recognize food on a label. Okay. Um, and first of all, real whole food doesn't have a label. Okay. So even if there's a label, that's like, okay, red flag number one, just tune in. And then it's about looking at that label. And sadly, many people don't. They'll like these alternative milks that you can buy now, right? A lot of dairy intolerance out there. Fortunately, we have a huge selection of dairy-free milks. You've got coconut, you got rice, you got oat milk, almond milk, hazelnut milk, etc. Soy, and people will just look at them and they'll say, "Okay, 2 pounds 50, 1 pound 25. Okay, we'll do the 125." Right? Um, Sadly, real food costs more. Fake food is cheap, right? And so when you look at some of these alternative milks, right? I won't mention brands,
Yeah.
but if they say added anything, right? If they say fortified with calcium, fortified with vitamin D, That's a marketing advantage claim, but it usually means leave it, right? Because it's going to have gums and fillers and carrageenan and things that don't necessarily support gut health and less kind of real ingredients. If you look at the ones that cost a bit more, you see water, rice, sea salt, coconut. Looks like food, right?
Yes.
You know,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
at that level, it's pretty simple. Just look for food on the label, right?
Look for food on the label. I love this. So we've got Eat a Rainbow,
Yeah.
looking for real food on labels. I want to bring you on to, because we were talking about milk, hydration. So
Mm,
when we're talking about absolutely in a sporting environment, in a gym environment, in a swim environment, we're probably the most conscious as we are all day for the fact that we might need some water because we're
mm,
sweating.
yeah.
But I think there's a few myths out there, and I want you to help me bust them or just like, love it. Cue drinking water from
Mm.
the nutritionist.
Because when we're thirsty, they say you're already 2% dehydrated.
There we go. That's
And I'm
what I want to
thirsty
go
now,
in.
so I'm dehydrated.
Okay. Can you
Let
just
me
say
have
that
another
again? Because
sip.
I think I interrupted you when you were saying about water. So we say we're conscious of it when we're in a gym environment, when we're in the swimming pool. We've got a water bottle with us. We're like, actually, we need it because we're sweating. But correct me if I'm wrong, our bodies need that hydration throughout the day. There's
Mm.
not just a moment, but you just said the body tells you something.
Yeah, I mean, when you get the thirst signal, the estimate is you're already between 1 and 2% dehydrated. And at the point of 2% dehydration, that can start to result as symptoms like confusion, like not being as mentally quick,
Mhm.
right? Fatigue, things like that. We don't often associate with dehydration, but heck, we're mostly water,
Yes.
you know? And when our cells start to shrivel like raisins, they don't function as well. Kind of logical,
Yeah.
right?
So
And the older you get, sadly, the less of that thirst signal, the more, I should say, that the weaker that thirst signal gets. So in the elderly populations, it's a real challenge to get them to remember to drink because they're just not thirsty.
and then tips for people that are like, oh, but I just don't like the taste of water. What's the
Mm.
key to get around that? Or how do we emphasize the importance actually of water?
Well, sometimes even simple things like adding a slice of fruit to your water bottle can just give it just that little bit of flavor. Cucumber is a nice one. A little sprig of mint. I like to put slices of apple in my water, and the longer it sits there, not that it's sitting there for that long, but it just gives you that little bit of less boringness, right? Fortunately, I don't mind the taste of water.
Yeah.
I never got hooked on the fizzy drinks. Um, and and fruit juice is not really the best choice for hydration because we didn't evolve drinking orange juice. You know, um, it contains so much natural sugar. Okay,
Mhm.
it's natural, but it's still a sugar. I
Yeah.
mean, when was the last time you've sat down and eaten 3 navel oranges back to back?
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
kind of difficult.
Yep.
You know, nature has a way of wrapping up sugar in lots of fiber so you can't get at too much of it too quickly. But when we juice 3 oranges and just down the hatch, it's just a massive blood sugar spike. And what goes up must come down, and
Yes.
that leads to crashes, and you're on the blood sugar roller coaster, and that's a whole nother topic. Um, but that said, if people really don't like the taste of water, adding a splash of fruit juice or something just to give it a little bit of flavor to make it more interesting. If that gets them drinking, I'd say go for it. It's not drinking a whole, 25-ounce, can of orange juice or what have you.
I suppose we've got
Yeah.
also the amount of amazing herbal teas that are now out there as well. If somebody doesn't like cold water, well, then do you know what? Take it in through a hot drink version of it.
Great. I mean, of course. And you can ice it even. And oh my gosh, Paca, what a selection of herbal teas. And I have an entire drawer at home of like 10 different varieties, whatever my mood is, whether it's nighttime or
Hmm.
manuka, honey, chamomile, and vanilla is my go-to at the moment. Green tea, hydrating, provides polyphenols, helps support, microbial growth in the gut. Tiny little bit of caffeine, so it can kind of get you mental clarity without kind of, exhausting the nervous
Yes.
system.
Yeah.
You know, Great tip for hydration.
Right.
And not forgetting. um, the need for electrolytes in
Hmm.
water. We don't, I've met people that are, we run their blood tests and they're showing as dehydrated, but they drink 2.5 liters, 3 liters a day. To me, that's a sign that, a little bit of sea salt, a pinch of sea salt in your water helps your cells pull the water in. It helps you hydrate yourself, and you can just use a pinch of Himalayan sea salt, or you can get, fancy electrolyte,
Yeah, I love that.
liquids.
Massive top tip there. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Whilst we're up talking drinks, just want to bring in a subject because there's a huge movement marketing wise about it at the moment. Energy drinks.
Yeah.
What are they? What do they do? Are they a good thing before you are working out? What? Go. The floor is
Ooh, I
yours.
mean, so maybe I'm a little kind of, the wrong guy to talk to here because on the whole, these energy drinks are loaded with sugar,
Yeah.
and there are other ways to get your energy,
Yeah, I
right?
don't think you are the wrong guy. I think that's a message that actually needs to come out there because people don't necessarily associate a rush of energy provided by something in a can with the amount of sugar that you are then intaking that's hidden under some chemical name to give you that extra buzz.
Yeah. I mean, there are over 100 names for sugar in the manufacturing industry, and the food industry use them all.
Can you say that again? How many?
Over 100.
Wow.
I almost said 200. I was attending a conference last week in California, and the guy threw the number. I think it was like 220 different names for sugar in the food industry. Maltodextrose. There's just all kinds of names for it that have an elevation to your blood sugar. And these energy drinks, yes, they are engineered to give you quick energy, all right? And they'll have things like caffeine in them, but some of them might have over 12, 13, 15, 20 teaspoons of sugar. Of course, that's going to light your brain up like a Christmas tree. Um, but there are consequences to that, and I'd far rather see people, drinking water with electrolytes or sea salt in it, maybe a splash of fruit juice if they like that taste, and maybe having, an energy bar that's made of dates, and dried apricots and coconut and walnuts and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, that's going to give you plenty of energy, and you're not going to be on that blood sugar roller coaster, because when your blood sugar spikes, um, it comes crashing down, and quick way to fix it is to pound another one,
Yeah.
and you become a maniac looking for a Mars bar, and you can just ride that thing all day long, and it just wreaks havoc on your adrenals, on your nervous system. It's inflammatory, not to mention, it elevates the hormone insulin, which is our fat storage hormone. And when insulin's elevated, we store fat and we cannot burn fat. So the people that are like on the treadmill all day long, pounding their energy drinks, they're not burning fat. They're burning the, the glucose that they're putting in their tank in real time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I think that you've summarized it absolutely brilliantly. Is everybody thinks, oh, it's an energy drink, I'm going to get a hit of caffeine.
Yeah.
Apart from also when you look into the milligrams of caffeine that are in it compared to just a coffee, you're like,
Yeah.
whoa, this is a hit. But it's the sugars.
Yeah.
And that's the bit that people are forgetting. And it's become a bit nearly commonplace and it's marketed at younger children. And when they come home from school, so and so had a pink can with them today. Well, personally, I don't care as your parent because they're not coming anywhere near our house. But it's the sugars and it's the rush from those that I would really like people to be incredibly conscious of.
Oh my God. And it's sad. I see so many kids going to high school with their breakfast as a monster can or whatever the brands are, and that's their breakfast,
Hmm.
and is it any wonder that we see them dozing off after lunch, because they're hypoglycemic, or we see behavioral issues, what about the nutrition, the nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, um, that are required for brain function and, sports activity, it's yeah, I know it's a big market.
Yeah.
Um, but if we could at least, get them, out of the teenage kids that are going to school, that'd be a good start. Adults can do whatever the heck they want. Um, And hey, if it's working for an elite athlete, you know, if it gets them over the line, great. But I'd say, hey, what about just coffee?
Yeah.
You know, what about things like beetroot juice? You know, when we squeeze juice out of a beetroot, it's rich in dietary nitrites that the body converts into nitric oxide that dilates blood vessels. And you know, you may have used it yourself,
Yeah.
but you know, people run further and faster on beetroot juice. So, and it's got all kinds of other good stuff in it, color, you know,
Power of the plants. It really is power
power
of
of
the
the
plants.
plants.
Whilst I've got you
Yeah.
here, I just want to talk about a couple of subjects that are coming up, and it's potentially a myth busting, but we're going to go through with added protein and then also fat free, because they are
Okay.
labels you see on products, they are messages that are coming through. So let's go with the fat free. What is that? Is it good? What's the process?
Yeah. I mean, fat um, was demonized, right, in the 70s, right? Successfully demonized, but wrongly demonized. We're kind of realizing we got that one wrong. But for some reason, people associate fat with being a bad thing, you know, and they think fat makes us fat. And if I'm educating a room full of people and I'll say, hey, here are two products, they're identical, but one has lower fat, which one's healthier? 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, will choose the lower fat choice. But, you know, I think we got that wrong, right? We die without fat, right? We die without protein.
Hmm.
We can live quite comfortably without carbohydrate. It's the only optional macronutrient, right? Because our body can make glucose out of protein, out of fat,
Yeah.
right? Um, but fat became the enemy, and the food industry responded. It started with the American Heart Association back in the 70s, demonizing saturated fat. And then in the 80s, early 80s, it became all fat. And then the American government got involved. And then in order to claim a health label, you had low fat. And, um, and that changed the entire food industry, right? They all pivoted
Worldwide.
worldwide.
Yeah.
And and sure enough, fat consumption started to go down. And as fat consumption went down, the obesity and cardiovascular disease rates went up, right? And and this is because when you take fat out of a food, you got to add something else in, and it's never additional protein. Protein's usually constant, and so you add carbohydrate, and carbohydrate elevates insulin, the fat storage hormone, and so people start storing fat and they're unable to burn their own fat reserves when insulin's up. When insulin's high, it's like your code at your ATM card doesn't work. You can't get out your savings account,
Yeah.
right? Um, and so, um, yeah, it was a mistake that I think has largely been the primary driver of the obesity epidemic and the type 2 diabetes epidemic, which is breaking the NHS at the moment. Um, and it's going to take decades to unravel.
Yeah.
You know, people just have been programmed so effectively that fat makes them fat. But fat doesn't elevate the fat storage hormone, by the way. You know, it doesn't move the needle. Um, and it's about healthy fats,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
And sadly, you know, if a food is high in extra virgin olive oil, you know, a cardiovascularly healthy fat, it might have a red on the label because it's high fat. You know, walnuts, high fat. Oh my God, you know, avocados. Ooh, I wouldn't touch it. It's fattening. These are fats that are so beneficial for health,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Not to mention the fats, the omega-3 fats, which we just don't get enough in the diet.
Hmm.
You know, when we evolved, the estimate is that we got 2.5 grams of omega-3 fatty acids per day in the diet, which we use to make our brain and our eyes keep inflammation at bay. Today, the average Westerner gets 125 grams, sorry. Um, no, milligrams. Yeah, from 2,500 milligrams of omega-3 during
Yeah.
evolution
Yeah.
to 125. All right. And so, you know, we're not able to turn off inflammation. because we don't get enough of these. That's why we hear a lot about omega 3s, omega 3s, omega 3s. We don't often hear omega 6 because we get so much omega 6 in these processed seed oils that are that all processed food is cooked in,
Yeah.
the rapeseed oils, the sunflower oils. These are very high in omega 6 fats, which, okay, we need omega 6, we need omega 3, but we need kind of a balance of those two fatty acids. And today, in the average British diet, it's estimated 18 to 1 omega 6 to omega 3. So
Wow.
we have lots of opportunity to make inflammation and almost no ability to turn it off, you know? Sorry, I went a little rat holey there.
No, I love
Uh,
that. But I also want to emphasize what you said, that, and it's a message that we just need to keep saying to people, because it's not, we don't talk about it. We are the same physiology that we were when human evolution stopped.
yeah,
Like, we haven't had to evolve because we're no longer running away, or we're no longer moving as a tribe to find our next food
yeah,
storage. So our physiology, our internals, has stopped at that point. And that statistic that you've gone back to, we still need that now.
yeah. This is what our brain is made of, mostly fat. We're all fat heads. And 2/3 of that fat is omega 3 fats. And guess what? We don't make that stuff ourselves. We have to get it from the diet, right?
Yeah.
And so, unless you're eating oily fish 2 or 3 times a week, like salmon, mackerel, sardines, anchovies, um, you got to supplement,
Yeah.
really, and in the plant world, in the vegan world, there are omega 3 fats from the likes of walnuts and chia seeds and flax seeds. Um, but we have to convert those shorter chain fats into longer chain fats to put them to use in the brain and the eyes and things. And humans don't convert them very well, unfortunately. So, um, yeah, that's a important topic. But believe it or not, there's plenty of evidence that suggests that the more healthy fats people put on their plate,
Yeah.
the less they eat over the day, because fat is satiating. It tells the brain everything's safe. I don't need to create hunger hormones because there's fat coming into the diet. And so we're probably not going to starve. So you can stop looking for food. When we go low fat,
Hmm.
that means high carb. And the brain goes, whoa, I need fat. Um, I'm going to make you eat. So it turns on all these peptides and neurotransmitters to say, go find food, please. And if it's the wrong type of food, it says, keep looking, and you just keep eating
You
and
go
eating.
and go and go.
And at the end of the day, you end up eating more,
Yeah.
even though, because willpower is finite, you know?
Definitely. Finally gets last one that I want to bring you into, the protein. So we see with added protein, contains extra protein, and it's usually on things like a yogurt with chocolate, and then there's protein added into that yogurt or something like that. Can you just talk about the with protein section that we're now seeing moving around?
Yeah, this is the latest kind of nutritional fad, isn't it?
Hmm.
Labels of protein. Fat free was it for a while, and you could put fat free label on sugar, and people will think, oh, well, I'll buy that sugar because it's fat free. Guess what? All sugar's fat free. It's like gluten free. You can put gluten free on rice, on an apple, and people will buy it because
Yeah.
they think it's great, but there was
Label.
never any gluten in it. But protein is everywhere. That protein label is really driving food choice, and it's a marketing advantage kind of thing. Um, is it bad? I don't know. I That's a good one. I won't kind of dismiss it. But are we consuming more protein as a result? When you look at kind of large cohort studies, protein intake generally is pretty stable throughout the decades, right? Um, and I don't know, I fall for it as well,
Hmm.
but I don't necessarily look at the protein label. I will look at the label, the protein label, I should say. I'll look at the ingredients, all right? And there's a column in the ingredients that says per 100 grams, all right? Not per serving, but per 100 grams. And because 100% is a nice little marker,
Hmm.
so if you look at the amount of protein per 100 grams, and it is 8 grams per 100 grams, that's 8% protein, all right? If it's 24 grams per 100 grams, that's 24% protein. I would classify that as a high protein food.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's how I kind of tell. I'll look at the label, I'll see that percentage. I like, if I'm choosing like a granola or something like that, I like to see a protein of higher than 15, 16% if possible. And it might come from little soy chips or nuts and seeds or whatever. Um, but the protein that I make at home,
Yeah.
which I just love to do, it's so easy. I will add whey protein
Mhm.
right to it, and the protein powders out there. This is kind of a minefield,
Yeah.
you know.
I'm thinking we might actually do a whole separate podcast on proteins because I think we could talk about this for a
Oh my gosh,
long time.
yes. I mean, especially in gyms,
Yeah.
No disrespect, but you just see the chocolate and the vanilla and the mocha and the caramel latte. Any protein powder like that, just look at the label, and
Yes.
you'll find over 30 ingredients, and not many of them look like food.
Mhm.
All right. The whey protein, and I use whey because it's one of the most bioavailable proteins, which means your body can get at the amino acids very easily.
Yeah.
Um, and the ingredients are 100% whey protein.
Done.
That's
Yes.
all.
Yes.
And then, okay, you want some flavor? Add some blueberries. Add a half an apple. Add a little splash of apple juice. Right? Add your coconut milk, your rice, your regular milk, whatever, and get your flavor from a little bit of
Natural
half a
whole
banana.
food. Yeah, absolutely.
And then you spare yourself from all the additives, and you still get the protein hit.
Thank
And
you.
I add some to my granola, and it gives it a kind of a clumpy, chunky, kind of
Yeah.
gnarly texture that I like.
Oh, I love this. See, we've got the top tips, but the big one from that is always read the label. Always read the label.
Simples.
Yeah. Mike, thank you for letting us know about Nutrable, for giving us a lot of your knowledge. Team, if you have any questions in regard to Nutrable, in regard to nutrition, please email them over podcast@everyoneactive.com, and we will make sure they get over to the Mike and the team at Nutrable. Mike, once again, thank you so much for coming on the Everyone Active
Hey,
podcast.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Looking forward to this partnership growing.
Absolutely. And yeah,
supporting
a
your members.
reminder, very good point. Those of you on U+, please check out your member benefits because Nutrable is absolutely one of them. As always, team, please share this podcast. Please leave us reviews and give us a little thumbs up or 5 stars. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day.
See you,
Bye.
everyone. Bye now.